In late June 2025, a 19-year-old pilot named Ethan Guo landed his single-engine Cessna at Chile's Teniente R. Marsh Base on King George Island, Antarctica. It was supposed to be a triumphant moment, the culmination of a global charity campaign to become the youngest person to fly solo to all 7 continents in honor of his cousin, a young cancer patient. Instead, the landing triggered an international legal standoff, a flurry of media narratives, and an unintended confrontation with the nature of sovereignty itself. Guo, a Chinese-American pilot and social media personality, had filed a flight plan over southern Chile. His aircraft was never authorized to enter Antarctic airspace, let alone land there. Citing deteriorating weather and icing risks, he diverted mid-flight and made what he later described as an emergency landing. Chilean authorities disagreed. They detained him on the grounds of falsifying his flight plan and violating national aviation law, an ironic fate for someone flying over a continent not officially owned by any nation. The case of Ethan Guo is not merely a tale of youthful overreach or legal misstep. It is a revealing study in the mechanics of modern mobility, how borders function in a world supposedly unified by global causes and digital connectivity. By examining this incident through the lens of immigration theory, we can see how Guo's landing, symbolically and legally, mirrors deeper struggles about access, belonging, and state power. The border beyond borders, sovereignty in the ice. Although Antarctica is governed by the Antarctic Treaty System, which prohibits new territorial claims, Chile, like several other countries, exercises de facto sovereignty over parts of the continent. From their legal standpoint, Guo entered Chilean territory without permission. His aircraft, though in distress, had no documented right to land. Michel Foucault's concept of biopolitics helps us understand the state's logic here. The state not only governs its land but the very bodies that enter it. Guo, as a foreign actor in a military installation, became a subject of state concern, not due to his identity, but due to the illegibility of his movement. He entered a sovereign space outside prescribed legal norms. This recalls Nicolas de Genova's work on deportability, the condition by which people become governable precisely because they can be expelled. Guo was not deported, but his status mirrored that condition. Even as a well-insured, trained aviator with global support, his sudden immobility, his inability to leave or move freely, echoed the experience of many undocumented migrants. Intent versus identity, the morality trap. Guo's mission was humanitarian, raising awareness and funding for childhood cancer. Yet Chilean prosecutors focused on procedural violations, not moral intent. This disconnect echoes immigration theory's debate over the deserving versus undeserving migrant, a dichotomy often used to separate asylum seekers into categories based on public sympathy or political expediency. Legal theorist Ayelet Shachar critiques this moral lottery in The Birthright Lottery, where she argues that access to rights and mobility is distributed not by effort, but by the accident of birthplace. Guo, born in the U.S., used his national privilege to pursue a global mission. Yet once he stepped outside legal boundaries, his privileges evaporated. Good intentions didn't shield him. Chile had to assert the primacy of rule-based order, especially in a place like Antarctica, where enforcement is rare but symbolically vital. To make an exception for Guo, even one based on compassion, might open the door to future infractions. The rule of law in borderlands, as Gloria Anzaldúa might say, is less about justice than about performance, about showing the border exists and will be enforced. Mobility and its discontents. Global mobility has long been assumed to be the hallmark of the privileged few. Guo had the means, education, and technical certification to fly continent to continent. But as Achille Mbembe writes in Necropolitics, modern sovereignty still functions through the control of movement, who can go where and when and under whose rules. Guo, despite his elite skill set, found himself immobilized. Antarctica, often romanticized as a space beyond borders, proved to be heavily bounded. Guo's experience shows that even in a region without official sovereignty, nations impose their will. The runway he landed on was not just concrete, it was Chilean jurisdiction made physical. His immobilization, legal, logistical, psychological, reflects how mobility is never neutral. Even in emergencies, the burden of proof lies with the mover. From sky to silence, the identity crisis. While in detention, Guo released few public statements. In one, he said he felt like a prisoner, unsure why he was being held. This echoes Hannah Arendt's notion of the right to have rights. Guo was not stateless, but in those weeks of limbo, he existed in a state of partial personhood, visible in media, invisible in legal resolution. His identity, social media figure, pilot, youth, humanitarian, was rewritten by his border crossing. Was he a reckless influencer chasing clout? A noble activist navigating an uncaring system? The narratives varied, depending on which nation, journalist, or commenter spoke. What is striking is that in trying to symbolize global unity, 7 continents for one cause, Guo became ensnared in the very nation-based logic he sought to transcend. His flight became a metaphor for the limits of symbolic action in a bordered world. Conclusion: the runway as threshold. After nearly 6 weeks of legal stasis, Chilean courts released Ethan Guo under a settlement. He would donate $30,000 to a children's charity, cover all costs, and agree not to return to Chilean territory for 3 years. As of this writing, he remains in Antarctica, awaiting final clearance to depart. Guo's case illustrates that even high-tech humanitarianism cannot escape the geopolitical strictures of borders. His journey was global, but his legality was local. His cause was universal, but his passage was regulated. His landing, ultimately, was not just a failure of communication or protocol. It was a collision between the dream of open skies and the reality of grounded states. Ethan Guo's flight plan was never just about airspace. It was about who gets to move freely in a world increasingly governed by gates, checkpoints, and permissions. In this light, white silence is not merely the hush of Antarctic wind. It's the silence between laws and lives, intentions and identities, skies and nations.